President Buhari attacks National Assembly over failed constituency projects. Bayelsa Governor Saraki Dixon accuses All Progressives Congress, former President Goodluck Jonathan, of legitimizing electoral fraud. In international news, U.S. new policy on Israeli settlements leaves Israelis more confident and Palestinians more depressed. And in sport, Super Eagles goalkeeper Francis Uzoho begins rehabilitation after injured Achilles surgery.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari has questioned the National Assembly on the huge trillions of naira budget for constituency projects in the last 10 years, for which there has been little or nothing to show. The president says people at the grassroots are not benefiting from the huge money that the National Assembly members have so far collected for the project. Buhari was speaking in Abuja on Tuesday at the National Summit on Diminishing Corruption in Public Sector, which was organized by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission in conjunction with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. President Buhari also called on the National Assembly to hasten work on the Special Crimes Court bill because Nigerians are looking forward to it. Buhari promised the ICPC his full support to deal with any public servant or legislator found guilty of diverting public funds meant for people's welfare and padding of personal budget. At the event, ICPC Chairman Professor Bolaji Owasonye presented the Commission's report on the first phase of Constituency Project Tracking Initiative. Bayelsa State Governor Saraki Dixon has accused the leaders of the All Progressives Congress of using the position of former Goodluck Jonathan to commit electoral fraud. During the press conference in Yanagwa, Dixon said the move was strategic. APC leaders strove to apply to justify irregularities and a takeover of Bayelsa by force. Some APC leaders, including Bayelsa Governor-elect David Leon, state governors of Jigawa Abubakar Badaru, Kebbi Atiku Bagadu, and the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timothy Silva, had visited Jonathan after APC defeated PDP in the Bayelsa governorship election. Dixon said APC leaders were aware that Jonathan did not contribute to their manipulation of the electoral process to gain the upper hand against the PDP. The Department of State Services, DSS, is accusing Omoyele Sowore of instigating violence by making calls to mobilize people against the present administration. DSS spokesman Dr. Peter Afunaya says they had received the court order that Sowore be released but could not just let him go without proper documentation to proper sureties. Afunaya also said Showore's lawyer, Femi Falano, had not been to the DSS office or in touch with the service since the bail matter started. The spokesman alleged the personnel of the service had also received death threats from various quarters over Showore's detention. It said DSS could not have released Sowore to the protesters led by Deji Adeoju, whom it said were at the headquarters last week because they were not the lawful persons to receive the detainee. Governor Seyi Makinde has won a mandate by the State High Court to seize the crown of the 21 Ibadan Obas elevated just 53 months ago by former Governor Abiola Ajimobi of Oyo State. In granting the terms of settlement jointly filed by the state government and the claimant, who doubles as the OC Olubadan of Ibadan land, High Chief Rashidi Ladoja. Justice Aderemi said since the parties had met and agreed, he was left with no option than to set aside the mandate. Ladoja won a landmark judgment in 2018 that quashed all the processes that led to the coronation of the 21 high chiefs and bales. Not satisfied with the lower court's judgment, Ajimobi appealed. The bill was still pending on May the 29th when he left office. His successor, Governor Seyi Makinde, recently set the ball rolling for an amicable resolution of the 2-year-old dispute which pitted the 21 kings against the Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Saliu Adetunji. Nigeria is experiencing some agricultural revolution, and thanks to the government's diversification policy, more young persons are going into agriculture now, and new methods of farming are springing up as the country aims to achieve self-sufficiency in food production. One young farmer is now utilizing an agricultural method that is totally new to Nigeria. Reporter Deja Badmus has that story.
From a distance, it looks like an abandoned tent. But right under this canopy, an unusual kind of farming is going on.
Hello, my name is PJ Okocha. Welcome to Smart Farms. So yes, what we have here is an 8 by 24 meter greenhouse, whereby we're doing a technology called aeroponics, as you can see here, and these are yam plantlets, and we're propagating yam here to ensure that we have a steady stream of production. So the yam here grows all year round. As you can see in this environment, it's an enclosed environment, and what that does is that mitigates against inclement weather.
It's an unusual kind of farming in a place like Nigeria, where yam is widely cultivated by tilling the soil and planted directly into it. But in this case, yam vines are literally grown in the air in a mist environment.
In a few months' time, these vines you see here will become canopies and extend out and so forth, which we will then carry out the vine cutting technology, cut from here, put into the nursery here for a month before taking to field. As you can see, it's about 10 boxes stretching down, and what that will ensure is that we will have about 800,000 vines in production. That 800,000 vines equates to 800,000 seeds or 800,000 tubers, and that's every 2 to 3 months. So essentially, in a calendar year, if you're going by 4 quarters in a year, what we are getting is about roughly between 2.5 to 3 million vines per annum.
When PS Nutraceuticals began operation in 2017, traditional farmers were skeptical of the idea. But through demonstration trials, they're gradually buying over the traditionalists to the tech side of farming.
What we do is that we give them seeds, which come from our aeroponic system, and we say, okay, plant this and compare it to your best variety, and let us know and come back to us with the results. And by and large, what they've seen is that what we've been giving them is far more effective. They're getting greater yields from the clean and healthy seeds that we're giving them. So with that, what they're saying is that, okay, we're ready for these seeds that PS Nutrac has. Please come and give it to us and provide for us as well. So not only will it empower farmers, but it will also ensure that the cost of yam and so forth also drastically reduces as well.
Nigeria is the largest producer of yam in the world, but the wide adoption of innovative methods like aeroponics could see the country multiply its production capacity and become completely self-sufficient in yam, with a lot for export. Kocha and his colleagues are also looking to taking their technology across the continent after having conquered the home front.
Coming up, African stories. South African platinum mining companies and unions sign historic 3-year wage deal. And later, international news. U.S. new policy on Israeli settlements leaves Israelis more confident and Palestinians more depressed.
Today, night all reach for me to settle blessing. Blessing for you. When this girl first got this my shop called network. Now so on top of NTF 4G phone. Now this girl could press. I provoke. No, it's short. It reach what time, eh? The ambulance to make her tell her to make she mash her at. Come up from my shop. And later I go realize say this girl go snap am. Put her for inside internet. They take her to adverts. Now I make customers that they come with my shop. Blessing, I want make you help me manage my shop now.
Madam, but I think Nami and Blessing start work the same time.
Now you and Blessing start work the same time. Blessing, you better start with a T-shirt for top of your 4G MTN phone.
Business makes sense on top super fast and reliable MTN 4G. Join MTN, make you enjoy double data.
Welcome back. Now we'll take a quick trip around the continent. Students and teachers in Somalia are back in class as several universities resume classes after recent floods displaced thousands and forced schools to shut down in central Somalia. Abdulaziz Bilal reports.
21-year-old Marian Omar is going through her notes as she prepares to sit for midterm exams next week. She is among hundreds of thousands displaced by recent floods in central Somalia. The second-year public health student has resumed learning after her university reopened following weeks of heavy floods. She commutes from El Jale to Beledweyne, a displacement camp located some 5 kilometers from her campus and home to close to 250,000 displaced persons.
I moved with my parents to El Jale due to the recent floods. We have now resumed classes and will sit for exams in the coming days. Authorities must come up with solutions to prevent flooding in the near future.
Mariam is not the only student affected. Abdifatah Addo, a 22-year-old first-year nursing student, is among more than 400 students who have resumed classes after weeks of flooding. Addo moved to El Jale with his parents after floodwaters submerged their home in Beledweyne.
I have returned back to my university and currently preparing to sit for exams. We call on local authorities to work on ending the current floods because it affects our education.
Up to 30,000 students were denied learning opportunities during recent floods. Education officials say 80 institutions were forced to suspend learning as floodwaters filled classrooms.
The flooding caused massive loss to our university. Floodwaters destroyed our laboratory, computers and other important learning equipment. Up to 400 students were unable to attend classes for 3 weeks due to the recent flooding and accompanied their parents to safety.
Heavy rains in parts of the country destroyed farms in riverine areas. Farming communities were the worst affected after the Shabelle and Juba rivers broke their banks, inflicting heavy losses to the local communities. It's the second deadly flooding to affect central Somalia in less than 2 years. In 2018, deadly floods forced the Ministry of Education to postpone national examinations in Beledweyne and surrounding regions. The country's president recently toured some of the worst-hit areas, pledging humanitarian and technical assistance to mitigate the crisis. Locals now hope that precautionary measures will be implemented to address recurrent climatic shocks in the Horn of African nation.
As South African airway strikes continue, another aviation issue is brewing in Kenya, where the National Treasury is planning to buy out Air France KLM, local banks and more than 80,000 individual shareholders from Kenya Airways and delist the national carrier from the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Transport Principal Secretary Esther Kilmet told Parliament the buyout plan follows the July vote in the House to nationalize Kenya Airways and save it from mounting debts. The Transport Ministry is working with International Finance Corporation to recruit a technical expert to conduct a fresh valuation. The loss-making airline is 48.9% government-owned and 38.1% by lenders. The rest of the shares are held by Air France KLM, Kenya Airlines employees and individual investors. Delegations of women in Cameroon are visiting towns and villages to encourage women to run for office in the upcoming February local and parliamentary elections. Women make up half of the country's population, but less than a third of Cameroon's 180 lawmakers. They are also just 6% of the country's 380 mayors. Coordinator of More Women in Politics, Justin Defoe, says men usually make the family decisions and do not allow their wives to be seen in public with other men. She says that impairs their participation in politics. Defoe says the group has mobilized support for women not only to take part at the local and parliamentary elections by voting, but to be candidates themselves. Defoe adds they are visiting all the council areas where the February 2020 elections will be conducted to ensure female candidates will not be rejected for not meeting legal requirements. Cameroon's political parties say they are working to increase the number of women to run for elected office. South Africa's biggest platinum mining union has sealed a 3-year wage hike agreement with Anglo American Platinum Impala Platinum and Sibanye Stillwater ending months of negotiations over pay. The deal comes as a relief to the sector where officials were fearful of a repeat of a 5-month platinum strike in 2014, which crippled production and hurts the economy. Reporter Angela Coppola has the details.
There was jubilation as well as relief when the $400 million wage deal was signed for the next 3 years. It comes after months of intense negotiations between unions and South Africa's 3 main platinum producers, Anglo, Impala and Sibanye Stillwater.
We are absolutely pleased at the outcome of the wage negotiations. It has been a grueling, very long process. However, throughout the process, the engagements were very cordial, collaborative, constructive, and really underpinned by mutual respect.
We have gotten a deal for our workers that we believe is fair, we believe it's sustainable, we believe that it is in the best interest of the business as well as the workers, and it didn't come with long protracted strike action.
AMCU President Joseph Matunjwa, who championed the fight for fair wages for the last decade, has described it as a small victory for the 160,000 workers employed in the platinum sector.
One cannot say I'm feeling happy. The gap of inequality in South Africa is still vast. We haven't even dented the inequality in South Africa, but we are in the right trajectory, to change the lives of the workers.
The deal will bring some stability to the sector, but its woes are far from over. Weak demand, declining productivity and rising electricity prices are adding pressure to the bottom line. 36,000 jobs were lost in the second quarter of this year, and many more are at risk.
Insofar as the restructuring of our organisation is concerned, it is very, very unfortunate. We're busy going through that consultation process at the moment, and hopefully by the end of it, we'll find some alternatives to actually reduce the number of job losses.
If the workers are not killed underground, are not contracting these diseases, occupational diseases, they are facing retrenchment. It presents a good opportunity to change the status quo, to revolutionize every economic policies.
Matunjwa says South Africa's challenges go deeper than the mining sector. He says capitalism is failing the country and issued a stark warning to government to address poverty and unemployment, or it will have a revolution on its hands.
When we return, international news. U.S. new policy on Israeli settlements leaves Israelis more confident and Palestinians more depressed. And later, sports. Super Eagles goalkeeper Francis Uzoho begins rehabilitation after injured Achilles surgery. Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to news happenings around the world. The Trump administration's policy announcement on Monday, which reversed the decades-old American policy on Israel, is extinguishing any hope that a long-awaited proposal from the president can resolve the 70-year territorial conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. A day after the U.S. declared that the Israeli settlements were not illegal, the only practical effect on ground in the region was a subtle shift in morale. Israeli settlements are feeling slightly more confident, while Palestinians are slightly more depressed. Both Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank say the new American policy does nothing to change their fundamental insecurity. Although the Trump administration has crafted a plan for Middle East peace, details of which remain a secret, its prospects may have reached a new low this week, partly because of Israel's political stalemate. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has given Israel's former Defense Forces General Benny Gantz until midnight to form a government. If it fails, Israel is likely to hold another election in March. In British politics, the march toward the December elections continues with a debate yesterday between Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn. Both laid out two clashing messages that have shaped each candidate's campaign. The December election could determine whether Britain leaves the European Union or stays. The Prime Minister's message is that Brexit is just a speed bump on the road to British prosperity. But Jeremy Corbyn's outlook is that Brexit is the door to a decade of tortuous trade talks and a sell-off of Britain's cherished public services. Corbyn's Labour Party trails the Conservative Party imposed by an average of 12 percentage points. With Britons irritated by both main candidates, some analysts say that simply holding its own gave Corbyn a chance to turn the tide. The Brexit debate continues. The flood levels that forced Venice city authorities to close the iconic Venice Central Square on Friday have now receded. St. Mark's Square is now reopened and tourists are once again flooding the popular site. A state of emergency was declared on Thursday. Flooding began on Tuesday when waters reached a height of 6 feet, the highest since 1966. Reporter Daniel Robertson is in Venice.
A new week and a chance for a fresh start. Water has dried, the sun is out, St. Mark's Square is open and full of tourists.
In no time they get all their shops cleaned up, squeegeed out, smelling nice, and it's back to a normal day for them.
Now the extent of the damage will be assessed. Experts already estimate it at €1 billion.
This is considered one of the most beautiful bookshops in the world, and it's adequately named Acqua Alta, meaning high waters, and that's exactly what this place faced. But like many places across Venice, the beauty has really shone through. Despite the damage, there's been a quick response from volunteers giving their free time to help get this business back on their feet, no longer flooded with water, but people instead.
As the bustling city returns to normal, scars have been revealed, and the calls for change are growing. Barriers to defend the city are due to be completed by 2021.
Every year by year, and it's getting worse and we're feeling it. So we need to start changing things right now, and this is the moment for us to do it.
China's National People's Congress has expressed deep concern after the Hong Kong High Court ruled an anti-mask law unconstitutional. A spokesperson said only the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, China's top legislator, can judge and decide whether regulations in Hong Kong comply with the basic law. Hong Kong police said on Monday they have stopped enforcing the anti-mask law after the High Court's ruling.
China's top legislature, the National People's Congress, has criticized the Hong Kong High Court's ruling that the emergency regulation ordinance is a violation of the Basic Law. The Basic Law is a set of rules that are the basis of Hong Kong's governance. China's lawmakers said on Tuesday that the inclusion of the ordinance into the Basic Law was approved by the Standing Committee in 1997, right before the handover. The ordinance was originally enacted in 1922 by the British government in Hong Kong, and this is the first time it's being challenged ever. It gives the Hong Kong chief executive the power to make regulations in occasions of emergency or public danger.
Because of the ruling of the High Court, the police would no longer arrest people because of they wearing a mask, just simply wearing a mask. So as a result, there would be lesser arrest. Because of this lesser arrest, those rioters would be enlarged. So as a result, there would be more rioters on the street, not being arrested and apprehended and prosecuted. So this would be a devastating effect on the effort to stop violence in Hong Kong.
On October the 5th, months into violent protests in Hong Kong, Chief Executive Carrie Lam cited public danger and invoked the ordinance. She then implemented the prohibition of face covering regulation, also known as the anti-mask law. The new law banned people from wearing masks or face coverings during protests. Carrie Lam said it was aimed at ending violence and restoring order. The leading counsels of Hong Kong's High Court argued against the ordinance, saying it gives the executive branch power to bypass the legislative branch and make provisions when, quote, there is no emergency.
Still ahead, sports. Super Eagles goalkeeper Francis Zoho begins rehabilitation. Please stay with it. Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. Lobby Stars coach Benga Ogunbote and his counterpart at MFM Tony Bullis are extremely happy about their club's victories in the Nigeria Professional Football League on March Day 3. Lobby defeated Kano Pillars 1-0 over the weekend at the Sani Abacha Stadium in Kano. A 45th minute goal from Kennedy Chooks helped MFM secure a win against Rangers. On his part, Bullis said his knowledge of Rangers helped his side. Super Eagles goalkeeper Francis Uzoho has begun his rehabilitation program few days after undergoing a successful surgery on his injured Achilles. The Omonia Nicosia of Cyprus goalkeeper, who is on loan from Deportivo La Coruna, underwent the surgery last week. The 21-year-old uploaded a short video of his recovery work on his Instagram page on Tuesday. Uzoho suffered the horrific injury during an international friendly match last month between Nigeria and Brazil at Singapore National Stadium.